Hi, this is Jose, Joy of Fish Keeping. Should you trust your controllers and your heaters blindly? That's something that we are going to see, and something that any experienced fish keeper would know of product failure. And this is about such failures. This is a Wi-Fi Inkbird 306A. Right now this one is showing 83 degrees. This is a new one that I'm replacing. And this previous one that was working on this 65-gallon tank, it's showing error 4, which means there's a difference more than 3 temperature between the two probes. If you look at it, the temperature on this one, it's reading 109 to 112. The accurate temperature is what the other one is reading actually. Now, can you follow blindly your controllers or your heaters? As any electronic things, a brand new car or whatever, there are chances for failure. Now, what happens within the last couple of weeks, I've had failures of 2 heaters. This particular controller, by no means am I knocking Inkbird. I have about 8 of them in use currently, and these are excellent units. I did a previous video on controllers in general, but I spoke about this one in particular. I am not sponsored by any company, neither do I want to be sponsored by any company at this time. Whatever I say, I would like it to be an honest opinion of what I find and in my own experiences. So now what happened with this particular aquarium here was that I had these 2 heaters. They are Eheim traditional glass heaters, and they at some point I was getting a temperature of 89 in the 90s in this tank. So I quickly panicked and disconnected everything. That's what the controller was saying. I read the temperature on the thing. I didn't check the temperature immediately in the tank, but I just made the assumption that there was some heater failure, and for which reason we keep the controllers. But the controller, I have this one set at 79. Why was it still heating? Why was it reading a high, about 89, 90? I decided to test these 2 heaters. One of them is a 300 watt and one is 150 watt Eheim heaters. I was ready to chuck them and throw them away, but I said, let me just run a test, put the controller, both controllers in, and see what the differences were, how well they worked and everything. I was just stirring. I started with this temperature water up in the 70s, and I set the heater to not on the controller, I just wanted to heat the water, and I set it to a point where I know it was going to heat to approximately whatever the dial says, which is kind of difficult to see because it's somewhere in a range and it's close, but not an exact reader, which I have been slowly transitioning over to the non-glass heaters that have an electronic readout, which is a lot easier to know and measure, and they also act as their own controller. But even with their own controller, I still use the Eheim controllers and to a set temperature. I checked multiple thermometers, got all kind of similar reading. Now the Inkbird, it was showing about 1 degree higher than the other thermometers were reading. Just to double check the electronic ones, I used 3 different electronic thermometers. I use a glass thermometer and then also the temperature probes from the Inkbird. The Inkbird has a calibration that you can set it, so I went down a degree on it so that it reads the same as it does the electronic heater. I also check the temperature with a gun thermometer, so I got pretty consistent readings throughout. So I allow the heaters to reach the temperature without the controller. I added cold water and set on the controllers. This bucket of water I started in the 70s, low 70s temperature. I constantly stir just to make sure that, since there's no circulation here, to make sure that the temperature remained uniform. I set the dial on the heater somewhere between 82 and 84, so this is reading 83.2, and the digital one also is about the same. The faulty one is reading 115, which is incorrect. So the heater did what it was supposed to do. It heat to the correct temperature, and it stopped heating. So this is the controller right now reading at 83.2. On the Inkbird app, I went up to 90 degrees and allow again the heater to do its thing. So right now you see that it's showing heating on the app. This time I increase the heater to heat to 90 degree, and also the Inkbird at the bottom number is the desired number, so it's currently at 83.2. The faulty one is reading 113 right now, so it's set to about 90 on the heater, and it's coming up is 83.5 right now. So it's heating kind of quickly because it's a small volume of water. This is a 300 watt heater, and the app is reading 83.6. It's heating. You see the red light, so the heater it's heating, and it's at 89.9, but it's still showing that it's heating because it's reaching the temperature. You see now the 90, the way the arrow is pointing, is no longer heating because it reached 90 degrees. So it's desired 90, it is at 90, and also the little light there is off, which means the Inkbird is not sending any electricity down to the plug, to the outlet. So right now I am just removing some of the warm water. I added cold water, and I am testing now the 150 watt Eheim heater right now. It's showing currently 81, and I think I'm going up to also at about 90. I heated to 90 degrees again to test the heater to see what's actually working. Currently it's at 81.9, and it is moving up nicely. And what I just allow the thermometer to reach the 90 degree again, just as with the previous one. I removed some of the warm water, added more cold water to begin testing the other one. I went up with similar results. One thing was that once I started, I plugged in the 150. The current temperature was 78. When I started testing the 150, after a few minutes, I was smelling kind of a burnt, cloth burnt stuff sensation. And when I checked the heater, I had actually plugged in the wrong heater, and the heater that I was not testing was actually burning on a towel that I have on the floor there. So the testing on both the 150 watt and the 300 watt Eheim heaters were fine. The heaters were working properly. They stopped heating when they were supposed to, confirmed by temperatures and the controllers. And I also did the testing with a new controller. The new controller did what it's supposed to do, and it stopped at 90 degrees also. So in short, the Eheim heaters were fine, both of them, just the faulty controller. I've used the Eheim products in the past since the early 80s, and also Canessa filters from Eheim, and I have really nothing bad to say about Eheim products. I have nothing bad to say about Haiger, which I'll speak to you about in a minute, or about the Inkbird controllers. Just as I said, it's a small electronic equipment, like all electronics. You have to be mindful, and you have to be careful and pay attention to your eyes, your smell. As this oops moment with the heater, I plugged the wrong heater because they were both the wires were next to each other, so I just plugged the wrong one in. Just be diligent with your tank. Certainly your eyes, your smells. My wife and daughter are always my second eyes at home, and second noses too. So generally you have to just use your senses and common sense most of all. With the glass heaters, I just mentioned that I'm going to start going away. I'll keep these two Eheim heaters here, and I will just start transitioning over to the other ones that have a different heating elements as opposed to glass coverage because of possible breakage. Another YouTube friend from the north, from Canada, his channel is Discus North, recently had a video where he says that he noticed that his Oscars were acting a little strange, and then he realized, and I think he put his hand in the water, he got a little tingle, if I remember, if that's what he said exactly. But the point was that one of the heaters had actually broken, and the fish were feeling current of electricity. And so again, that's why I've had that in mind for a while. Our hands are always in the water in the tank, and any breakage, any electrical failures can certainly, we can feel the difference there. Also, I recently had a problem with a Haiger heater, one of the ones that I had replaced. It's supposed to, once it reaches a certain point in the heater, the water level, when you're doing water changes, I usually have the heaters connected to the same plug as the controllers and the filters are, so that when I turn one thing, everything goes off. This one is there temporarily, and what happened was that I was getting smoke, and I was getting the plastics burning smell, and actually the thing had melted. It failed to do what it was supposed to do, which was just to stop when it got to the water level. So on both cases, Amazon is replacing the faulty heater, and Inkbird was very responsive, the company, and they're sending me a replacement unit. All they asked was that I made a comment on their response on the Amazon page, so that I guess they'll that they did right by me. So okay, again, trust your equipment, but just they are a tool not to be solely relied upon 100%, because they can fail.